about pollination, which is a part of sexual reproduction in flowering plant in Unit 1 of Biology. So let's talk about pollination. So what do you mean by pollination? Pollination is the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the flower. So how many kinds of pollination occurs in plants? So three kinds of pollination occurs in the flowering plant, which is autogamy, heterogamy and xenogamy. So let's talk about them one by one simultaneously. So first one is autogamy. Autogamy is the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the same plant in the same flower. So now let's talk about the flower in which these kinds of pollination can occur. First one is cleistogamous flower, second one is casiogamous flower. In casiogamous flower, the anther and the filament are open, so it is very easy for them to pollinate. In the cleistogamous flower, these are closed, so only autogamy can be done. And in this, no variety of heredity and traits can occur. So second one is heterogamy. Heterogamy is the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of another plant but on the same plant. So functionally, it is xenogamy, but genetically it is autogamy. No variation can occur in this heterogamy. So now let's talk about xenogamy. Xenogamy is the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the another plant and on the another plants also. So what are the agents of pollination that make it occur? There are two kinds of agents. First is biotic and second one is abiotic agent. In biotic agent, the agent is living, which can be insects, bird, etc. and many kinds of reptile also. But in abiotic, the wind and water is very popular. So now let's talk about abiotic agents. Abiotic agent can be of wind and water. Basically, wind pollination is also known as aminophily. In this, the pollen grain must be very light and non-sticky, so it can be dispersed with the help of wind. Now let's talk about hydrophily. Hydrophily is the pollination which is done in the water. So in this, the water flows and which carry pollen grain and make the pollination occur. Now let's talk about outbreeding devices. Outbreeding devices are those devices, basically we can say that in which prevents the autogamy of the flower. As we know that for change and heredity, there are some variety of traits which must be occur in the plant so that some changes can be happen. As from many years we see that there are some heredity occurring with which the plant of today's generation survive. It can be done with the help of autogamy or heterogamy. Xenogamy must be important so that the trait can occur. So to make xenogamy, some methods is applied. First one is bagging. In bagging method, the anther is removed firstly, and as pollen pistil interaction occur, so some pollen sprinkle on the pistil of the flower. So what kind of pollination occur in this case? So only heterogamy, except heterogamy and autogamy, only xenogamy can occur in this case. The second one is the removal of anther, which is also known as emasculation. So these two help